Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Kramer, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement at the University of Colorado Boulder's Leeds School of Business. Leeds is a top business school offering undergraduate, MBA, executive MBA, MS, and PhD programs, and has an alumni network of over 46,000 strong living and working around the world. For today's webinar, we are so excited to welcome Hallie Crawford, Certified Career Coach, who is here presenting I Want a New Job, Now What? How to Jumpstart Your Job Search. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First, if you have any questions now or during the presentation that you would like to ask Hallie, please send a question through the Q&A interface. We will monitor questions as they are submitted, and we will ask Hallie your questions at the end of the presentation. As a reminder for optimum audio quality, we do have everyone on mute except for myself and our speaker. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please notify us through the chat interface and we will touch base with you. Lastly, a link to access the webinar recording will be sent to all registrants by Saturday along with the survey link. Now I'm excited to introduce today's speaker. Hallie has been a certified career coach, speaker, author, and national career expert since 2002. Her company, Create Your Career Path, is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. She is regularly featured in the media, in U.S. News, Forbes, and other outlets, and has undergraduate and graduate degrees from Vanderbilt University and the University of Illinois. With over 2,500 success stories, her team of coaches and resume writers help professionals find jobs that make them want to jump out of bed in the morning to go to work. Welcome, Hallie, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to hand the webinar over to you now.
Thank you, Amanda. I think that was the best intro I've ever had, with the emphasis on the jump out of bed in the morning to go to work, because that's what we are all about, is helping people, find a job, because we know that some people are nervous about that in this economy, in this market, but find something that is a really good fit for them as well, is always our goal. So we're here to talk about, I want a new job, now what do I do? Because we know that this can be really overwhelming for people. So we're going to try to share some very practical, tangible tips today. As Amanda said, I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author. I've been coaching and training since 2002 and been a partner with the University of Colorado for many, many years. I have lost count, which really fantastic partnership, and I love that. The advice we're going to give you today, we're going to give you a lot of advice and tips, and we try to make it as tangible and practical as possible. But what I want you to know is that because we're going to give you so much information, please pick and choose what makes the most sense for you to start out with at the beginning, based on your situation, where you're at with your job search, etc. So write down a couple of action steps that you want to take in the next few weeks, and know that you will get a copy of the recording of this. And I actually just posted, and I think, Amanda, I might need you to post the link to everyone, because for some reason it's only posting to hosted panelists for me. But there is a link that we'll put in the chat, thank you, for our slides as well. So you can get a hold of those too. So let's take a look at our next slide. This is why we're here today. Job search and career transition, even in a really good economy, can be challenging for people. There's a lot of new technology, and we're going to be talking about AI today and how to leverage it for your search. There's so many steps to take. Our clients will tell us, I just don't know where to start and how to use my time really wisely in my search. And we know that people out there are feeling like it's tough to get a job these days, but please know that when you still look at the statistics, the job market is still pretty good. Layoffs have slowed down during the course of this year, which is good. And we know that it still can feel challenging for people. So we're going to help you with that, but just try to keep as positive an attitude as you possibly can. Use the tools we're going to talk about today. And we know that, like, a lot of these different things kind of float around in people's head. I'm not sure how to handle my search. Is this an okay time to be looking? Or should I sit tight where I am if I'm still employed and wait for a few more months? And the final question we get a lot from people is, what is the right job for me in the first place? And how do I get in front of hiring managers? So here's what we're going to be talking about today. You can get a hold of the slides by downloading immediately from the link there. You can email us at admin@createyourcareerpath.com. That's another way we can send them to you. We're going to be talking about defining your direction using our ideal career model, getting your house in order, getting those materials ready to go, and some tips and tricks for that. making sure that you're taking the right action steps through doing your homework and researching different organizations and through networking as well, and making sure that you stick to your plan. As Amanda said earlier, we are going to have time for questions at the end. I wanted to say two things about that. Please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box at any time. We'll hold everything and get to as many of them as we can. But if you would like to ask questions later on that come to you after the webinar, or if we don't get to your question today, Amanda will put in the chat, and I think she's got it as part of our follow-up too. Feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer your question offline after the webinar too. So let's go ahead and dive in and start with step number 1, and this is defining your direction. When or if you want to conduct an effective job search, the more effective searches are more targeted. Now, I will say to you, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the next couple of slides, it's okay to have a couple of different ideas of directions that you may want to head, but we don't want you to have any more than 3. So what we want to think about first is, okay, how focused are you as you think about your new job? How targeted are your ideas? Are they really targeted? Are they somewhat targeted or not really? And what I would recommend, kind of as I said a moment ago, is that you want to be as targeted as possible. But if you're concerned about being too targeted or not having enough options, if you want to cast your net just a little bit wider, it's okay to look at and consider adjacent or similar jobs to what you've been doing or what you're considering. And we'll talk about how you can research those and identify them as we go. But be as targeted as you possibly can, because that's going to help you brand yourself effectively, come across in the right way, do the right thing there. And I think, Amanda, we've got a first poll here about how targeted people are. So we'll go ahead and launch that for just a moment. And I'm going to leave this next slide up so you can start to kind of noodle on this too, as you're thinking about how targeted and your ideas are in completing our poll. So we'll give you a moment to do that. And one of the first exercises, and it looks like most people are kind of somewhat, which I'm actually happy with, because as I said a second ago, it's okay to have a few different ideas, and we'll talk about that more as we go. But the first step to help ensure that you're as targeted as possible with at least like 1 or 2, maybe 3 ideas, is to separate what works for you at your current position or at your previous position and what has not worked or does not work. Create a list of the things you've liked, the things that you've disliked, and then create a list from that of, okay, what do you want to have instead? What type of work environment do you want to be in? What types of tasks do you want to be working on, et cetera? And then there's a third step here, identify the themes for yourself. So, and someone said define targeted, and I appreciate that question. So I'll answer that actually right now in just a second. But what we want you to do is clarify your career direction based on these are the job titles. Targeted, being targeted means I know the types of job titles I want to apply to, and it's not like project manager over here and dentist, something completely different over here. So having a targeted list of 2 or 3 specific types of job titles that you want to that you want to go for, so to speak, or apply to within a specific industry or 2, that's what we mean by targeted. And as part of defining your direction, you want to be thinking about for yourself, if you're looking at a career shift, I want to do something similar to what I've done in the past, but a little bit different, or if you're looking at a larger transition. So let's talk a little bit more about how to define your direction, narrow down your ideas, and get a little bit more targeted over time so that you can say to yourself, these are the job titles I want to go for. And even if, and I'll say this kind of as a caveat to what I just said, even if you've got like you're looking for project manager or data analyst, let's just say, or data, management director or something like that, even if you're okay with looking for those types of jobs across any industry, you don't have to be as industry specific necessarily, but it can help you get that new job if you've got that industry specific knowledge, obviously. So let's take a look at this slide. The things that we want you to consider when you're defining your direction are what's going to be rewarding to you, what your interests are, and this means like what types of tasks you'd like to perform, ideally, for the majority of your day. What are your strengths, your top 5 strengths? What's your past experience? What's your education? And how do these help you be qualified for the jobs you're looking at? What's your personality type? And what does that mean in terms of the type of role and type of organization you should or want to be in? And then finally, what's the right work environment for you? And what's the compensation and compensation whole package that you require? We recommend to people that when they are brainstorming ideas about what they might want to do next, we want them to start with what would be rewarding to them first, because you'll get a lot more of ideas by doing that than just saying, okay, I'm good at this, and this is the amount of money I want to make. So look at your interests and fulfillment first. Brainstorm a lot of ideas based on those, because there are so many different jobs that we don't even know exist, that it's worth looking and seeing what else is out there. And then you can start to narrow things down based on, okay, what are the things I'm going to be best at and highly qualified for, relevant to the different pieces of the model, if that makes sense. So we like for people to brainstorm ideas first based on things like, how do you define success at this point in your career? I know we have some very recent grads here today, as well as older grads, more like me. But how we define success at whatever phase in our career, it makes a difference in what's going to be the right fit for us. What would your ideal day at work look like and be like for you? And I'm not saying that you're going to get perfection right out of the box, and that you can just pick and choose, from 10 different offers. But we want to go for what works for us long term and what we truly want long term as much as we possibly can, so that we can move our career in that direction as much as possible. And we like for people to also identify their top 3 career values so that they can understand, okay, what's going to be most meaningful for me. And we have our clients do a personal peak experience exercise where they think about, okay, a moment in time or a period of time in their personal or professional life, to help them think about, okay, what would be meaningful for me in this next step for me of work. For those people that are more recent grads, I get it. We need to just go get a job. We're not going to find perfection in our first job necessarily. Sometimes we do, but you have to pay your dues at the beginning. It's still worth thinking about and considering, okay, what would I be best at and what would be most meaningful for me, so that you can try to, again, move in the direction long term that really works for you. When we're brainstorming ideas and narrowing things down, seeing what else is out there that's a possibility for us, but also like brainstorming alternative job titles that might be a good fit for us, industries that could be relevant or similar to our degree or to the job that we've had for the last 20 years, you can leverage AI and online tools to help you identify industry or degree adjacent types of roles based on past education, but what you've been doing before. As we continue with this slide, you could consider and look at, to help you cast a wider net, vendors to your industry. Those are possible places that you could consider applying. Or could it be some sort of consulting or like advisory role? So some of the keyword strings that we would suggest, or these are kind of ideas how you can present them or put them into either ChatGPT, et cetera, careers related to data analysis or in data analysis, just as an example, vendors to the construction industry, consulting roles, et cetera. So you can use AI and ChatGPT to help you narrow down your ideas, but also get ideas about, okay, this is the job title that I'm looking at, or these are the 2 that I'm focused on, but what are some that are related to those or similar, to help you find other opportunities out there that are similar or the same? There are 3 websites that we like for people to take a look at when they're brainstorming ideas and trying to figure out what types of jobs they could apply to. They're listed on this page. myplan.com is one, bls.gov, onetcenter.org. These are kind of career brainstorming websites. And some of them, for example, like bls.gov, the cool thing about that one is that it gives you like the requirements of jobs, what the outlook is for that occupation, if it's booming or slowing down, because this can help you narrow down your ideas as well and see what practical considerations you need to be considering and thinking about. So this is one of the ways that we can leverage AI. Another thing that you can do to help you better understand where you want to be applying, but also what strengths you have to bring to the table when you start to think about branding yourself and selling yourself effectively, is an assessment like the Strengths Finder assessment. There's lots of actually free assessments online too, like short versions of the Myers-Briggs. We use the Strengths Finder with our clients because it's lower cost and it gives you a lot of good information about your top 5 strengths. And it's not just about you understanding what your strengths are in order to sell yourself effectively, but put the right keywords and put the right things on your resume and LinkedIn. We like this one also because it can give you language you can use in interviews when you're talking about who you are and what you bring to the table. So we like at least one assessment to help you either narrow down or brainstorm some career ideas, but also be able to articulate your strengths and your brand effectively. And finally, this is the end of our first step, and then we'll go to step number 2. Please, even if you are at the beginning of your career, or if you are feeling like, I just need to go get a job, I can't think about the fulfillment as much. I totally understand that. Please try to consider as much as you can each of these pieces of the model. And one of the things that I will tell you to really try to make sure about as much as possible too is the work environment. Because so many clients, when they come to us and they're not happy in their jobs, they find out through working with us that sure, they might not be performing their tasks or the tasks that they want to perform or leveraging their strengths as much. But so often it ends up being about the work environment for them. You could be in the perfect job for you, doing the right things in the right industry, et cetera. But if the work environment is not a good fit for you, it's not going to work for you in the long run. So consider each of these pieces of the model one by one, starting with fulfillment, going to the left, finishing with the blue to narrow down your ideas in order to evaluate the opportunities that you end up getting, figure out what's, the best for you, but it can also help you see what else might be out there that could be a possibility. Consider each one carefully, please. Let's look at step number 2. Branding yourself is really important. I know people have heard about that before, so we'll talk to you about what we mean by it and some specifics there. We find that people are not as good with their elevator pitch as they ought to be, and they've done a really good job with their resume and LinkedIn, for example, but when they start to go on interviews or they're talking with people through networking, they're like, they kind of catch themselves up. Their elevator pitch is not as good as it needs to be. So we do want you to think about all of these things. And what we would argue on this next slide is that your brand and thinking about what you bring to the table and how you're unique, we wanted to include, yes, your strengths, experience, education, but we also want you to include your personality type, like elements of that, and how, like, if you're really good with conflict or change management or leadership or something like that, where do you really shine personality type wise too? And talk with people as well about why you're interested in their job or the industry that you want to get into. The thing that you want to think about when you're considering your brand is also include those soft skills, not just, okay, I've got this degree and in my coursework, I worked on these types of projects and maybe I had this job during college, all the way to people closer to my age, X number of years of experience. But what are those soft skills you have too? And when you're trying to figure out what your brand is, you can ask your friends, family members, former coworkers, mentor, etc. What do you think of when you think of me? What adjectives come to mind? Because almost when you're writing your elevator speech or pitch, you almost want to be saying like, I am known for this. So what are you known for, like in your circle of friends, but also in your professional life too? Okay. And we want to make sure as we're starting to work on resume and LinkedIn that all of those things are branded. And we'll show you what we mean in the next couple of slides here by that. And we also want you to make sure that your online presence is clean because employers will retract or not, go ask people to interview if they see negative things online from people, as you see on this next slide. So just be careful about that with your social media, just like you've heard before. Just be cautious about it. Some of the things that you can do when you're trying to work on branding your materials and understanding what your soft skills are, you can leverage AI for this too. So you can ask it, for example, what are soft skills for engineers? Or what are the top, important strengths or skills required for an event planner? So again, this is another place that you can use and identify common strengths for your current role, for the degree that you have, what is typical or common for those people. You may not have all of them, but getting a sense of that. And then also those soft skills for specific roles that you have too. So think about leveraging AI for all of these as part of getting ideas for how you can sell yourself effectively, whether you've just graduated or beyond. All right, so let's talk about developing your elevator pitch first, just a little bit more, because your elevator pitch is something that you'd want to incorporate in some way, shape, or form in your About section on LinkedIn, and you can use it for networking too. So as most of us know, it's short and sweet. It's supposed to spotlight the unique qualifications that you would have or benefits you would provide and the results that you can provide for people. When you're thinking about creating and working on your elevator speech, you want to think about who your target audience is, know and understand what the deliverables are that you can provide. It's nice if you can come up with an opening sentence that grabs attention. Like Amanda was talking when in the introduction at the beginning, find jobs that make people want to jump out of bed in the morning. That is part of what my elevator speech is. And then you want to make sure that you practice it. Now, this is another thing, and I'll dive into AI a little bit more here too. You can use it to help you develop it, but with AI, with your search, in any way, shape, or form, whether it's helping you develop your cover letter, your resume, your LinkedIn, etc., we do not want you to just have it spit that out for you and that's what you use, because that's what everyone else might be doing. And employers and recruiters tell us that they can tell when something has been solely written by ChatGPT or AI, and they don't like it. So use these tools as an aid or assistance for you. And for example, you may have it write or develop an example cover letter, but then you edit it so that it's makes sense for your situation, for your strengths and skills, and it's in your own tone of voice. Do not just use AI to help you develop everything and then send it all out. People can tell, and it's not recommended. Use it as a tool to assist you, enhance your elevator speech, give you ideas about what you might be able to say, etc. There's two examples of elevator pitch or speech, same thing on this next slide here. Feel free to grab the slide so you can see that. And obviously, when we're talking and thinking about this, we are wanting you to create this because you can use it in different contexts. You can use it to help you start to develop your cover letter, put it in your About section. You can use your elevator pitch to send it over to a prospective hiring manager, for example, to get their attention. So when you're creating all of this content for yourself, when it's updating your resume and your LinkedIn and more, we recommend housing all of this in one place so that you've got your intro email that you send out to informational interview people that you want to network, et cetera. So you're not having to recreate the wheel every time. Let's talk next about step number 2, and this is on this next slide about revising and updating your resume and LinkedIn profile. It should always communicate your brand. And let me just hop to this next slide here for just a moment. Your resume should have a header that helps you stand out with your degree at the top. So what we would recommend is, for example, you have your first name and last name here, put a comma and put MBA and any other certifications or qualifications degree-wise that you have there so that it doesn't get buried at the bottom. That's what we tend to like. Some of our clients are like, I don't like having that. They're less comfortable with it. Put it inside of your summary statement, worst case scenario, as well as at the bottom with your education. But what we mean by branding here is this is giving us a clear sense on this slide of who this person is he's got like a cool tagline underneath and then his summary statement. So your name is your brand in that we want you to have a header at the top that really sells you effectively. And I'm going to go back to this and we'll go back to that in just a second. Couple of quick tips with your resume and LinkedIn. Obviously, make sure that all of your bullet points are very results oriented. One of the things that we need to pay attention to a lot these days is those applicant tracking system scanners, because they will boot you out of the system if you don't have the right keywords inside of your resume. And keywords are helpful and important in your LinkedIn as well, because that will help people find you, those employers and recruiters who are using LinkedIn Recruiter to find possible candidates. Having the right keywords in there will help you get noticed by those people. So keywords are more important. Now, we could have like 5 webinars on these, and I do boot camps on these things all the time. But what you want to be thinking about with your keywords and the placement of them on your resume is the top half of the first page, and your keywords should start to appear in your summary statement as well. And on LinkedIn, you want to have the right keywords in your header at the top that's right underneath your name, as well as in your about section. And that's also where you need to have your skills sections at the skills section at the bottom built out as well. Okay. But this is what we're talking about in terms of branding, is just making sure that people really know upfront who you are, what you bring to the table, etc. Now, we've talked about this already, but I wanted to point out one of the tools that you can use that's listed on this slide here. Jobalytics.co is one of the tools that we'll recommend to our clients that can help you with your keywords. There's also another one called resumeworded.com. You run your resume through that, and it will tell you which keywords you need to have. Now, remember, with these systems, you want to try to get your score as high as possible, but up to like 60%, give or take, on these is enough. And I say this because some of our clients have gone crazy with their keyword systems and they're trying to play around with all of them. You don't want your resume and LinkedIn to just look like a jumble of keywords either. It needs to be readable and look like you've created it. Okay. So again, use technology to revise and add things, but make sure that you're not just like cramming keywords in there, and that's all that you have. We do have, and we sell resume and LinkedIn templates that look good, show you the sections that you need to have on your resume, and they also get past the scanners. You can email me about that. I'm happy to share information about that. We've got multiple templates for both of these that you can just kind of plug and play with things in a good way. With your LinkedIn profile, you want to make sure that everything looks really up to date, professional, etc. I will say a few things related to this particular slide here. Make sure that you've got measurable results in your experience section, just like you do on your resume. Get those recommendations, because we like for people to use some of those excerpts of testimonials and recommendations in their experience sections on LinkedIn so that they don't get buried at the bottom. It's that third-party endorsement. You want to make sure that you search engine optimize. This is that keyword idea, your LinkedIn as well. And you can leverage AI for revisions to your content. Technically, we don't want people to just copy and paste literally their resume onto LinkedIn. We want your LinkedIn to be a little bit different. And let me move to the next slide here. But if you're just starting out with LinkedIn and you need to just get it updated quickly so that you can get your job search going, it is okay to just copy and paste, but work on it over time so that you have fewer bullet points in your experience sections on LinkedIn. And you've got a really good like header for each of your jobs, and you've built out the skills in each one of them too. And the reason why I wanted to bring up this particular slide here, and then we'll continue going, is have a branded banner on your LinkedIn so that you are, again, telling people exactly who you are and what you bring to the table. Put your MBA up top here. You can add it here in your header as well so that people like they capture that as a keyword if the jobs you're applying to are looking for that specifically, and that's going to be really important. This one is a little bit bigger on the page. I don't like the yellow as it looks bigger, but what you'll see here is she's got a tagline and she doesn't have her job title there. You could have that, that's an option. But again, this is branding her for what she does. She's in veterinary pharmaceutical sales, okay? If you need more help, questions you want to ask later on, same email address. Just wanted to mention, if you do sign up for coaching with us or are interested in that, we always do a free consult and we give a discount for Colorado alumni. So just be sure to mention that if you do sign up for a free consult. Let's talk about step number 3, and this is networking. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that I know that these days people are really focused on these scanning systems and getting past them and what are recruiters using, you know, technology wise and all of that. And I totally understand that you do need to work on that. But we still find that jobs are still secured by who you know. And so please spend most of your time, or I would say more of your time for sure, not just applying for jobs online, but connecting with fellow alum, connecting with people in your LinkedIn, you know, roster of connections, reaching out to new people, using and leveraging LinkedIn to see if you can find the hiring manager for the job that you're looking for, the recruiting firm that may be like dealing with that job. There's lots of different things that you can do to leverage LinkedIn Premium, which we do recommend because the first month is free and it's relatively low cost based on or compared to what they give you. Your job search is more effective with LinkedIn Premium. I will tell you honestly, years ago, I did not say that because I think that at the time it was just not quite as robust, and it's a lot more robust now. If you apply for jobs online, for example, on LinkedIn, LinkedIn will help scan your resume to help you see if you're qualified for that job and what adjustments you may need to make. But please still do this networking thing. It's so critically important. The people that we work with that do more networking, they get jobs faster. You can ask ChatGPT for networking events in your area, association meetings in your area, places to network for your industry. Industry associations are a great place to go to and attend meetings, whether they're in person or virtual, but sometimes they also have job boards too, and then they're going to be narrowed down and tailored to that industry, which is great. I would recommend hopping into a couple of LinkedIn groups. We have been told by our clients so far that some of their LinkedIn groups are good, but a lot of them aren't as active as they would like. But we've had employers and recruiters actually tell us that in some cases, they will go to their industry specific LinkedIn group first to find prospective candidates because it's already a narrower field and it's a little bit easier as a result. So couple of things that we'll say in terms of networking effectively on this next page is make sure that you really research your market first and understand, okay, where are the right people? Where are they hanging out? Like whether it's socially, locally, industry associations, etc., so that you understand not just where they are for networking purposes, but also what the trends are within the industry. What are people talking about? What are the themes that you're seeing between the different job descriptions that you're finding? And ooh, those are the keywords I need to make sure I put in my resume and LinkedIn. We talked about 2 or 3 LinkedIn groups. Even if they're not as active, I would feel free to post some comments or questions in there and see if anyone responds. We have had clients in LinkedIn groups identify the people that are more active within those groups, reach out to them to do an informational interview, and have great success with that because people who tend to be more active in groups like this tend to be more open to networking and good at it. You can ask people for advice on your job search. What we tell people is say something like, you know, don't go out there asking for people to revise your resume. That's too big of an ask. But say, how can I put my best foot forward in my search? Just getting some generic advice from people can actually be really helpful because what if they know the keywords that their company is really looking for? What if they know someone that works there that they can introduce you to? What if they've worked with a recruiter before that they've really liked? So set a goal and try to connect with a certain number of people every month and every week to expand your network on LinkedIn, but also gather advice and information along the way too. And do know that, and let me just go to this next slide here because we've got two more quick polls we're going to do, and we can go ahead and launch this informational interview one. Two things here. Number one, we want you to get on LinkedIn as soon as you possibly can, up to 500 connections, because it does make a difference. And number two, the more connections you have on LinkedIn, the more second connections you have, and your network is getting wider. So there's more people you can connect with and conduct informational interviews with. And it looks like I'm really pleased with this number, actually, that there's 53% that have completed a virtual informational interview. That's awesome. I've noticed over time that these numbers continue to go up. So I think people are listening and getting the hang of things. Informational interviews are basically one-on-one conversation with someone who works in an industry that you want to get into or continue in, a role that you're interested in, or an organization that you're interested in. And again, you're just asking them for advice about your job search. Any ideas, the keywords that I should be putting on my resume? What is your organization really looking for? What are some of those soft skills? Have you worked with any recruiters that you really liked? And as part of your research, and step number 3, as part of this networking, you can actually look at other people's profiles who are in jobs that you're interested in and see how what they say about their strengths and experience, and see what some of those buzzwords might be. It's a good idea to follow the organizations that you might be interested in on their LinkedIn page, because you can get more information about them, but also what's kind of going on in your industry too. And make sure you're doing a lot of research with different job descriptions and not just saying to yourself, okay, I want to apply for this job and this one and this one. Take note of what the themes are that you're seeing between the different job descriptions, because that's going to tell you about the things that you want to be paying attention to, articulating in interviews, saying in order to get in front of people. And our last couple of slides here before we get to Q&A, I wanted to make sure we have enough time for that, is if you're ever wanting to connect with a second or third connection on LinkedIn, always ask the person in between the two of you to make an introduction. Don't just go to that second or third person. They're going to be more likely to respond to you if they get an introduction. And then if they include you as well on that introduction, either via email or LinkedIn message, then the ball is more in your court. You know who this person is. You have their contact information. So don't just like reach around, ask for that introduction, and ask them as well if they're willing to include you on that request or that intro. So our last and third poll here is making sure that when you do connect with someone on LinkedIn, if it's a cold reach out or someone new, not your BFF, making sure that you always include a note. And you could say something as simple as, I'm a fellow Colorado Leeds School of Business alum. I would love to connect with you and just stay in touch. It could be that we are in the same industry. I really appreciate your point of view about this issue on LinkedIn, et cetera. Would love to connect with you. It doesn't have to be, too intense and overwhelming. And as part of LinkedIn, few things here that we want to say, and I'm going to focus on these, but I also want to add one other little nugget. So make sure that you've got the app on your phone. When you're in job search mode, you want to be really time sensitive and timely about responding to messages. Join groups, write recommendations as well as get them from others as well, all of this good stuff. But make sure that networking is part of your weekly schedule. We said earlier to set a goal of a certain number of new connections you want to make on LinkedIn every single week. And then I would also set a goal of informational interview or conversations that you want to have, in addition to association or in-person meetings, or even virtual networking events. That is completely okay too, but virtual or larger group events that you want to attend. And I would also be paying attention to, as part of one of the LinkedIn premium items, pay attention to the who has viewed your profile feature. Because what if you applied for a job, a week ago and someone in the past couple of days has looked at your profile, I would want to reach out to that person and say, thank you so much. Is there any other information I could provide for you? So our last and fourth step, and there's actually just one slide on this one, and then we'll get to our Q&A, is to create a plan. So we've already talked about specific goals that we want you to have so that you have tangible action steps and things that you're trying to work towards that will make you feel better each week. And it's not just about saying, I want to apply to 10 jobs every week. It's fine if you have goals for that purpose, but we also want you to have networking goals as well. So make sure you're clear about your targeted roles, set a schedule for your search. So you've got a daily schedule for yourself and a weekly schedule as well. Stay really organized. We like and give to our clients who work with us an Excel spreadsheet that's just for their job search that has pre-filled out tabs to help them stay organized and know what they need to do every single day. If you're unemployed right now and are looking to enhance your skill set, but also want to have something to put on your resume, check out LinkedIn Learning. We don't get paid by any of these people, by the way. These are just ideas and suggestions we give to our clients. And then make sure, finally, too, to put your best foot forward in the branding sense. Update your voicemail on your phone. Make sure it's not the robot voice, that it's your voice, that it's positive and upbeat, and create a branded email signature for yourself too that goes out to everyone that you send an email to or reply to. How many times have you gone into your email because you've got a call with so-and-so and you're trying to find their phone number and they don't have that signature line? It can be really important for your search, especially. Okay. So as we start to move towards Q&A, and Amanda very kindly is going to help filter through these, write down 1 or 2 action steps that you will take in the next week. Remember, pick something that makes the most sense for your situation at this time. We would love it if you would share your action steps in the chat, because we'd love to see additional ideas there and for accountability too. We've got some suggested action items on this last slide here. And Amanda, I'm ready for questions when you are.
Wonderful, Hallie. Thank you so much. And the questions are streaming in. I'm going to start with a question. I think we've got quite a few class of 2024 new grads on. And so similar question from Noah, Ryan, Luke. How do you recommend recent graduates go about finding jobs that do not require much previous experience? All kind of saying, I'm trying to get my first job out of college, but I don't necessarily have experience in the industry I'm interested in.
Makes perfect sense. Great questions. So first of all, you do have experience. It's just maybe not 20 years of the traditional, work experience, et cetera, like some people might. Put experience on there that you had during school, any jobs that you've had, since then, in between, et cetera. Use your coursework, projects you've worked on, et cetera, and those strengths and all of that as the experience that you've had. That is relevant. And it's what you have right now, and people understand that. The other thing that you can focus on and be careful about is when you're looking for positions that aren't requiring that formal traditional experience as much, make sure that you're targeting the right job titles. So more like coordinator versus manager or director level. So make sure that the job titles and things you're applying to make that most sense for the level that you're at. And this is, again, where industry specific job boards can help a little bit too, because they will have a variety of types of jobs listed on there. So check out your local association for your industry and network there as well, but check out their job boards too. It's a great question, but just please know that the experience you've had so far in school is relevant as a starting point, and put that on there as if, like, okay, this is the experience I've had. These are the courses I took. This is what I learned. These were the projects I worked on, etc. Hope that helps.
Thank you so much. Yes, very thorough. Very much appreciate that. Great. Next question comes from Aaron and an anonymous attendee as well. Similar question. What's your recommendation on how to tackle all of this if you already have a full-time plus job? I want to devote the time, but it seems overwhelming to think about all of this. What are your recommendations there, Hallie?
Great one, because it happens a lot with people. It's understandable, normal. Break it out for yourself and say, okay, can I fit in 30 minutes of job searching 3 days a week on my lunchtime or lunch hour? I say that because most people don't even have that anymore. Break it out and say, when can I work on this 2 or 3 days a week, even if it's only for 30 minutes, get really organized and streamlined with your Excel sheet, your content. And then maybe you say, okay, Saturday mornings before the kids are up or whatever makes sense for your situation, I'm going to spend like an hour there. Build it into the existing time that you have. Don't try to say, I'm going to come home from work and I'm going to work on my job search because we're exhausted then. Is there a way that you can build it into your day a little bit when you do already have breaks or something really quick after work, for example, before you go home?
Great, thank you so much. Question from Sam, as well as an anonymous attendee around cover letters. Are cover letters recommended for all applications? I've heard they're often not read, but I feel like it may also be important to make the application more personalized. Could you give us the overall sentiment on cover letters in the job search process right now?
Yep. Great question. Provide one if they ask for it. Do not provide one if they do not. Have one ready because some places will ask for one. And if they're asking for one, they're more likely to read it, obviously, but know that a lot of places won't. And it's 50-50. Some people will read them, plenty of people will not. It will not read them. It kind of depends on the industry. I would create one and have one ready to go just in case, because if nothing else, even if you don't use it that often, you still have that content that you could use to get in front of people during an interview, during networking, etc. So have one ready, but don't obsess about it too much because plenty of places will not even ask.
Great, thank you so much. Another kind of compensation related question from David and from Sarah. How do I manage the compensation expectations question? Particularly if you're flexible, how do you handle that in the conversation with potential employers?
Give them a range. And I usually say a range of around like 5,000, give or take, no bigger than that because that's going to get too large. But what you can say is simply, because they're going to ask you sometimes up front, or they might during the course of the interview process. You don't want to say, well, what's your, budget? Because that starts to get weird. You can ask along the way if they don't bring it up, could you let me know what's budgeted for this position? But an easy way to answer is my range is in the range of X and Y, but I am flexible with this and I would like to discuss this further because, I'm interested in being in this position at this organization and I'd like to continue that discussion. So just let them know up front, right when you give them that range, that you're flexible with it. And then at the end of it, ask, is that within the range of what's budgeted for the position?
Wonderful, tangible advice. Thank you so much for that. Another question from both Robin and Tracy. Is it okay to apply to 2 jobs at the same company at roughly the same time? One may be slightly higher than the other, really interested in that company. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good one. My advice for people is to go ahead and apply for both. It's hard to know on the other end with that organization how much the right hand is going to know what the left hand is doing. To me, though, if you get picked up by the scanners for one of them, but not the other one, then at least you got through the door, right? You just don't want to apply to 2 very different jobs. That would look weird. As long as they're similar enough, and if your your qualifications are close enough for each of them, I think it is okay because you might get through the door with one, but not the other.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Another anonymous attendee says, great content. Thank you so much. What is your perspective on the need today to apply to a large number of jobs in order to get a response? I have a polished resume, great content, strong keywords. I'm still struggling to get a response from employers.
So this is where I would say 2 things. Number one, it is okay to have like a larger net that you're casting in order to try to get something. But if your net is too wide and you're trying to use the same resume for all of those, you're probably spreading yourself too thin because we do want people to target their resume for each position. And you really need to do that. And there are ways to do it where you should only have to spend like 10 minutes updating it. What I would say for this particular person is if you've been just, applying online, all of that, try the resume worded and get your resume scanned, et cetera, but start doing the networking because for whatever reason within the industry that you're looking in or those types of jobs, like we never want people to just rely solely on applications. use the LinkedIn tips that we talked about today to start reaching out to people to get the ball rolling more, because that's usually how people get jobs.
Thank you so much. And Hallie, our next question comes from Lori, who said, could you talk a little bit more about how to incorporate soft skills into the resume? You could build it into the paragraph at the top. Are there other places where you could look to build in your softer skills on your resume?
Great question. Usually have them for the most part at the top, but in your experience, in your bullet points. If, for example, one of your accomplishments, let's say, was you were able to, and I know this is kind of old now, but it's what comes to mind, move your office over it during COVID from, in person to virtual. And that's more of like a soft skill, like change management. You can also put it in your experience bullet points too, but focus on the summary experience bullet points. Those are the major places to put them.
Thank you so much. Next, we have a question from John. Is it worth messaging recruiters and corporate talent acquisition folks on LinkedIn? Or will I just get lost in the messages?
I am a try anything kind of person. We had a client once who we coached her. She had gotten a first interview. She was not going to be called in for a second interview. And she messaged the recruiter and said, hold on, I am highly qualified for this, and sent the recruiter list of the requirements of the job, and side by side next to that, her relevant qualifications. They ended up bringing her in for a second interview. She's been there for 7 years. So my philosophy is might as well message them unless they say not to. If there's ever instructions on LinkedIn or anywhere else, do not reach out to us, follow their instructions. But worst case scenario, what if you do get noticed? I would try it, because again, this is that proactive reach out, that it is a little bit of a law of sales. And this goes for every networking advice that we were talking about today. You may not get like a 10 or 20% return rate. It's going to be a low return rate of people responding to you, unless, for example, you're leveraging your alumni network, et cetera. But the more of those you do, the higher your success rate is going to be. So bottom line, I would do it.
Great, thank you so much. And taking a look at the time, we'll move into our final question, and then we'll move into wrap up. This question was submitted by an anonymous attendee as well as Roberto. For larger companies with more automated online systems, I've been left on that application in progress phase with little to no feedback. I've tried to contact their office. Most of the time, they can't help with timeline expectations. If and how could I stand out in this kind of scenario?
This is where you could use the example or idea that we just gave, where you send them something else like, look, here's the requirements of the job and here are my qualifications. Send them something that's a little bit different, an example of a project or program that you worked on, or some kind of, like work piece or, example of it, to try to prod them along a little bit more. And then at the same time, I would be applying for other jobs too, because sometimes the process of hiring just takes too long and you can't wait. But I would just try to get creative with it, with the ideas that we just said too, and see if you can get your attention that way, or their attention, sorry.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I think that really answers the question of, is it even worth trying when I get stuck in that phase? And it is, and there are ideas to do so. So fantastic. Thank you so much. We got to most of the questions. If you still have a question for Hallie and her team, you can see the email there, admin@createyourcareerpath.com. Hallie, is that the best email to use?
Yes, I get that as well as my admin does too.
Fantastic. So please feel free to reach out. And we want to say a big thank you so much to everyone for joining us for today's presentation, and a special thank you to Hallie for this great information. At this time, we invite you to provide your feedback by answering the following poll question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this webinar to a friend or fellow CU Boulder alum? As a reminder, all webinar attendees will receive an email with a link to the recording of this presentation, as well as a survey. To view upcoming webinars, as well as previous recordings, please visit our website at colorado.edu/business/alumni. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for your time, and go Buffs.